The house was my everything. My name is Cameron, and for the past 5 years I'd poured my soul and most of my salary as a project manager into making it a home. Every payment, every repair, every decision, largely me. Bowen, my husband, Bowen was good at appreciating the finished product. He'd clap me on the back after I'd spent a weekend tiling the bathroom floor and say, "Looks great, babe," as if it had magically appeared. I loved him, or at least, I loved the man I thought he was, but there was always this little hum of unease, a background static that got louder whenever his parents, Jorge and Vivian, were around. They were a lot. Vivian, with her backhanded compliments that could strip paint, and Jorge, whose pronouncements on how the world should work usually involved someone else footing the bill. Lately, their visits had become more frequent, their hints about slowing down and family support less subtle. Bowen, bless his easily influenced heart, would just nod along, his eyes shining with filial devotion. I'd bite my tongue, reminding myself that they were his parents, and they lived an hour away. An hour I was starting to cherish like a precious, life-saving buffer. Last Tuesday started like any other. A flurry of emails, a team meeting that ran late, the usual project fires to extinguish. I was looking forward to a quiet evening, maybe a glass of wine and some mindless TV. Then Bowen called. "Hey Cam, Mom and Dad are going to swing by for dinner. Is that okay?" Swing by. Like it was a casual 5-minute pop-in, not a 3-hour siege. "Oh," I said, trying to keep the weariness from my voice. "Sure, Bowen. What's the occasion?" "No occasion, just a family dinner. Mum said she'd bring her famous casserole." My heart sank. Vivian's famous casserole was a dense, cheesy concoction that could double as a doorstop. "Great," I managed. "I'll pick up some salad stuff on the way home." The evening unfolded with its usual predictability. Vivian surveyed my kitchen, her gaze lingering on a fingerprint on the stainless steel fridge. "You work so hard, dear," she'd said, her voice dripping with something that wasn't quite sympathy. It must be difficult to keep up with everything. Jorge, meanwhile, had settled into my favourite armchair, flipping through channels on the TV, already making himself comfortable. Bowen shuttled between them, beaming, refilling Jorge's drink, laughing a little too loudly at his father's pronouncements about the state of the economy. I plastered on a smile and tried to make conversation, feeling like an outsider in my own home. Dinner was endured. The casserole sat heavy in my stomach. We talked about everything and nothing. Then, as I was clearing the plates, Vivian clapped her hands together, a theatrical sound in the relative quiet. "Well, everyone," she announced, her smile wide and a little too bright. "We have some absolutely wonderful news." Bowen straightened up, his face alight with an almost childlike excitement. He reached over and squeezed my hand, his palm a little sweaty. "This is huge, Cam. You're going to be so thrilled." I looked from his eager face to Vivian's triumphant one, then to Jorge, who was leaning back, a smug, satisfied expression on his face. A knot of dread began to tighten in my chest. "What is it?" I asked, my voice carefully neutral. Jorge puffed out his chest. "We've sold the house," he declared, as if announcing a royal decree. Okay, that was unexpected. They'd been talking about downsizing for years, but I never thought they'd actually do it. Their house was old, needed a lot of work. "Oh, wow," I said. "Congratulations. Where are you moving?" Vivian's smile widened, if that was even possible. "That's the best part, dear," Vivian trilled, her eyes sparkling. She reached out and patted my arm, a gesture that felt more like a claim than affection. "We're moving in with you and Bowen. Here." The air rushed out of my lungs. I stared at her, then at Jorge, then at Bowen, whose grin was so wide it looked painful. He was actually proud of this. He thought this was good news. "Here?" I managed, my voice barely a whisper. "Permanently?" "Of course, permanently. Silly." Vivian laughed, a high-pitched sound that grated on my nerves. "We're family, and this house is certainly big enough. We'll be so cozy." Jorge nodded sagely. "It just makes sense. We're getting older, Bowen can help us out, and we can help you two. Think of the money you'll all save. It's a win-win. My mind reeled. My house, my sanctuary, invaded. Not for a visit, not for a holiday, but permanently. They hadn't asked. They hadn't discussed. They had simply decided. And Bowen was beaming. I felt a cold wave wash over me, a profound sense of betrayal so sharp it was almost physical. I looked at Bowen, searching his face for any sign, any flicker of understanding of what this meant to me. There was none. Only that same blissful, idiotic pride. They hadn't just decided their future. They thought they had decided mine. They had no idea how wrong they were. Later that night, after Jorge and Vivian had finally, gleefully departed with promises to start bringing a few boxes over next week, the silence in the house felt heavy, suffocating. Bowen was humming as he loaded the dishwasher, still basking in the glow of the announcement. "Bowen," I began, my voice tight. "We need to talk about this." He turned, still smiling. "About what? Isn't it great? Mom and Dad here with us. It'll be like when I was a kid, but better, because you're here too." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "They can't just move in here, Bowen. We never discussed this." "I never agreed to this." His smile faltered. "What's not to agree to? They're my parents, Cam. They need a place. We have space. It's what families do." "Families also communicate," I said, my voice rising despite my efforts. "They don't just spring life-altering decisions on people. This is my house too, Bowen. I pay the mortgage." He frowned, a petulant look crossing his face. "Don't be like that. You're making it sound like they're freeloaders. They'll contribute, I'm sure. And Dad said it himself. We'll save so much money. Think about it. No more rent for them. They can help with utilities." "Help with utilities?" I almost laughed. "Bowen, they expect to live here for free. And what about our life, our privacy? My office will become Jorge's den, won't it? Vivian will redecorate the kitchen while I'm at work." "You're being dramatic," he said, turning back to the dishwasher, dismissing me. "Mum's a great cook, and Dad will be company for you when you're working from home." "I don't want company when I'm working from home," I snapped. "I want peace and quiet. This is a huge imposition, Bowen, and you didn't even think to talk to me about it?" He slammed the dishwasher door shut. "Why are you always so difficult about my family? They're good people. They love you. You should be more family-oriented." Gaslighting. The accusation stung, sharp and unfair. "This isn't about being family-oriented, Bowen. This is about respect. My respect. Our respect as a couple." He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, it's happening, okay? They've sold their house. They've got nowhere else to go." A cold suspicion began to form. "When did they sell it?" "A few weeks ago, I guess. They wanted to surprise us with the good news. And you knew." He shifted uncomfortably. "Well, yeah. I mean, I knew they were planning it. It's a good plan, Cam. Solid." The casual admission, the complete lack of regard for my feelings, for our shared life, hit me harder than their initial announcement. I felt a chasm open between us, wide and dark. I started noticing little things after that. Odd withdrawals from our joint savings account, small amounts at first, then larger. I'd ask Bowen, and he'd have a vague explanation. "Oh, that was for car parts," or "just some bills I forgot about." I wanted to believe him. I told myself the stress of the impending invasion was making me paranoid. A week later, Bowen came home from work, whistling. "Just got off the phone with Dad," he said, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "They've given notice on their rental, and the movers are booked for 6 weeks from Saturday." He took a long swig. "It's all arranged, Cam. Don't make this difficult." Difficult, he thought. I was making this difficult. The coldness in my chest solidified into something hard and sharp. "Given notice on their rental?" I repeated, latching onto the phrase. "Bowen, they owned their house. You said they sold it." He waved a dismissive hand, already halfway to the living room. "Yeah, sold it. Rental, whatever. Point is, they're coming." He flopped onto the sofa and grabbed the remote. The casual lie, the utter lack of concern for the details, sent a fresh wave of unease through me. Something was very wrong here. More wrong than just an unwelcome extended family visit. That night, I couldn't sleep. Bowen snored softly beside me, oblivious. The phrase, "given notice on their rental," echoed in my mind. Why lie about something so trivial, unless it was part of a bigger deception? The small discrepancies in the joint account, the ones I'd tried to brush off as paranoia, suddenly felt more sinister. The next morning, as soon as Bowen left for work, I sat down at my laptop. My heart hammered against my ribs. I felt like a spy in my own marriage, but the gnawing suspicion wouldn't leave me alone. I logged into our online banking, my hands slightly trembling, the joint savings account. We diligently put money into it every month, our future fund. For renovations, big trips, emergencies. It was supposed to be a testament to our partnership. I started scrolling through the transaction history, going back further than I had before. 6 months, then 7. And there it was. Not just small, odd withdrawals. Regular, significant transfers. $1,000, $1,500, $2,000, every 2 weeks like clockwork for the past 6 months. Each one labelled simply, "Transfer to J. Rogers, Jorge." My breath hitched. Thousands, tens of thousands of dollars, siphoned from our savings. Our future, directly into my father-in-law's account. Bowen hadn't just known about them selling their house, he'd been actively funding them, bankrolling their transition into my life, my home. The betrayal was a physical blow, knocking the air from my lungs. This wasn't just about his parents moving in. This was a calculated, sustained deception. He'd been lying to me for months, smiling to my face while secretly undermining our financial security, our trust, everything we'd built. Or rather, everything I thought we'd built. A cold, methodical anger began to replace the hurt. The shock was still there, but it was now overlaid with a chilling clarity. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't Bowen being easily influenced. This was a deliberate, coordinated effort by him and his parents to manipulate me, to take what was mine, to dismantle my life for their convenience. My project manager brain, the part of me that thrived on spreadsheets and clear action plans, kicked into gear. The emotional storm receded, replaced by a steely resolve. They thought they had me backed into a corner. They thought I would just accept. Roll over. I picked up my phone, my fingers surprisingly steady as I scrolled to Natalie's number. My best friend since college, now a sharp corporate lawyer. She answered on the second ring. "Hey Cam, what's up?" Her cheerful voice came through the line. "Nat, I need to talk to you," I said, my voice low and urgent. "Something's happened. Something really bad." I laid it all out. The dinner announcement, Bowen's complicity, the lie about the rental, and finally, the devastating discovery of the secret transfers. Natalie listened patiently, the silence on her end punctuated only by my increasingly shaky breaths as I recounted the details. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Wow," she finally said, her voice devoid of its usual cheer. "Cam, this is beyond just them being awful in-laws. The financial stuff, that's serious." "I know," I whispered. "What do I do, Nat?" "First," she said, her tone shifting into professional lawyer mode, "you document everything. Every transfer, every date, every lie he's told you. Second, and I mean this, Cam, you need to see a specialist, a divorce lawyer, and you need to do it quietly. This isn't just about them moving in anymore." Her words hung in the air, heavy and final. A divorce lawyer. The thought sent a fresh jolt through me, but beneath it, a flicker of something else. Determination. Natalie was right. This wasn't just about stopping them from moving in. This was about extricating myself from a situation that was rotten to its core. This was about survival. Natalie's words were a splash of icy water, shocking but clarifying. A divorce lawyer. The term itself felt alien, something that happened to other people, not to me, not after only 7 years of marriage. But the evidence on my laptop screen, the cold, hard numbers detailing Bowen's betrayal, was undeniable. This wasn't a partnership. It was a heist, and I was the mark. "A divorce lawyer," I repeated, the words tasting like ash. "Are you sure, Nat?" "Cam, he's been systematically draining your joint savings to give to his parents, all while planning to move them into your house without your consent. What part of that sounds like a salvageable marriage to you? Her tone was blunt, but kind. You need someone who specializes in this, someone who can protect your assets, especially the house. The house. My house. The one I'd poured my heart and my earnings into. The thought of Jorge and Vivian settling into it, funded by my stolen savings, made my blood boil. Okay, I said, a new resolve hardening my voice. Okay, Nat. Can you recommend someone? I know just the person, she replied. Anna Miller. She's a shark, but she's fair, and she doesn't suffer fools. I'll text you her details. Call her today, Cam. Don't wait. I clutched my phone, Natalie's advice echoing in my ears. Don't wait. The sense of urgency propelled me forward. I spent the next hour meticulously printing bank statements, highlighting the transfers to Jorge. I made notes of dates, conversations, Bowen's flimsy excuses. It felt like preparing a case file, and in a way, I suppose I was. By lunchtime, I was sitting in the sleek, minimalist waiting room of Anna Miller's law firm. The air hummed with quiet efficiency. I felt strangely calm, a detached observer of my own life imploding. Anna was exactly as Natalie had described. Sharp eyes, a no-nonsense demeanour, and an aura of quiet confidence that was instantly reassuring. She listened intently as I laid out the whole sordid tale from the bombshell dinner announcement to the secret financial pipeline. I spread the bank statements on her polished mahogany desk, pointing to the damning evidence. She didn't interrupt, just nodded occasionally, her expression growing more resolute with each detail. When I finally finished, speaking about the house, my voice thick with emotion as I explained how much of it was mine. The down payment from my own savings before we married, the mortgage payments meticulously documented from my personal account. She leaned back in her chair. Well, Cameron, she said, her voice calm but firm, this is quite the situation. Your husband and his parents have been extraordinarily presumptuous, not to mention the financial misconduct. That's a serious breach of trust. So what can I do? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Can I stop them from moving in? Can I get my money back? Anna steepled her fingers. Stopping them from moving in is one thing, but given the depth of the deception, are you sure that's all you want? Or are you ready to consider a more permanent solution? Her gaze was direct, unwavering. She wasn't just talking about keeping Jorge and Vivian out. She was talking about Bowen. I thought of his beaming face at that dinner, his casual dismissal of my feelings, the months of lies. The man I married, or thought I'd married, was gone, replaced by a stranger who prioritized his parents' greedy whims over our life together. I want a divorce, I said, the words coming out stronger than I expected. And I want them out of my life, and out of my house. A small, almost imperceptible smile touched Anna's lips. Good. That clarifies things considerably. She then outlined a strategy, clear and concise. We file for divorce immediately. Irreconcilable differences, compounded by financial misconduct and dissipation of marital assets. Regarding the house, you said the down payment was yours, pre-marital, and you've made the majority of the mortgage payments from your separate income? Yes, I have all the records. Excellent. We'll petition for the sale of the marital home. Given your contributions and his financial misconduct, we'll argue for a division of assets that heavily favours you. In fact, we'll argue that the equity is predominantly, if not entirely, yours. A surge of something I hadn't felt in weeks. Empowerment coursed through me. It wasn't just about stopping them. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully mine. What about them moving in? I asked. They're planning to arrive in less than 6 weeks. Anna's smile was predatory now. Let them. Let them book their movers. Let them pack their boxes. We'll time the service of the divorce papers for maximum impact. As for the house, we can list it for sale quietly. Once it's under contract as part of a divorce settlement, their plans become irrelevant. She slid a sheaf of papers across the desk. These are the initial divorce filings. Read them carefully. If you're sure, sign them, and we'll get the ball rolling today. I read through them, the legal jargon a stark testament to the end of my marriage. But there was no sadness, only a grim sense of purpose. I picked up the pen and signed my name. Leaving Anna's office an hour later, the city air felt different. charged with possibility. The papers were filed, the clock was ticking, and they had no idea they were walking into a meticulously laid trap. The weeks that followed were a masterclass in duplicity, mostly on their part, but with a quiet, simmering counter-narrative playing out in my head and through my discreet actions. On the surface, I was the slowly coming around wife. I stopped arguing with Bowen about his parents. When he'd bring them up, bubbling with excitement about their impending arrival, I'd offer a tight, non-committal smile and a vague, "That's something." Jorge and Vivian, emboldened by my apparent acquiescence, became regular fixtures. They'd pop over unannounced, usually around dinner time, or on Saturday mornings when I was trying to catch up on chores, or, God forbid, relax. "Just wanted to measure the guest room again, dear," Vivian would chirp, brandishing a tape measure like a weapon. "Jorge is thinking of bringing his big recliner, and we need to see if it will fit with the dresser." My guest room, soon to be their room. Jorge, meanwhile, would wander into my home office, the one I'd painstakingly designed for productivity and calm. He'd stand in the middle, hands on his hips, surveying it like a conquering general. "You know, Cameron," he said one afternoon, while I was on a crucial video call, "this room has excellent light. It would make a fine den, a place for a man to read his paper, perhaps enjoy a brandy in the evening." He winked, oblivious to the death glare I was trying to project through my screen. Bowen, bless his oblivious heart, just lapped it up. "That's a great idea, Dad. Cam's usually done with work by 5 anyway. Right, babe?" I'd just smile. A smile that didn't reach my eyes. A smile that was counting down the days. Vivian took a particular interest in my kitchen. "Such a lovely big space," she'd sigh, running a critical finger over my countertops. "Though the layout isn't terribly efficient, is it? And these cabinets? A bit dated, dear." She'd then launch into her plans for small improvements. New handles, perhaps a different backsplash. Just to make it more functional for all of us. The audacity was breathtaking. Every comment, every suggestion was a tiny pinprick fueling the cold fire of my resolve. I documented it all, mentally and sometimes in a locked file on my computer. Their presumptions, their entitlement, their casual dismissal of me in my own home. One Saturday, while I was pretending to be absorbed in a book on the patio, Vivian was on the phone in the kitchen, the sliding door slightly ajar. I could hear her voice, syrupy sweet, talking to Bowen's sister, Tamara. Tamara had always been a bit smug, siding with her parents, but from a safe distance, never having to live with the direct fallout of their schemes. "Oh, it's going to be wonderful, Tamara," Vivian cooed. "Bowen is so happy to have us. And honestly, it's about time. Cameron works such long hours, you know. Once we're settled, Bowen can finally cut back his hours at that stressful marketing job. Cameron earns enough for all of us, and it's time she focused more on family. Maybe started thinking about giving us some grandchildren." My blood ran cold. So that was the grand plan. Not just a free place to live, but a complete financial takeover. They expected me to support all of them, while Vivian presumably directed my life, and Bowen would what? Become a kept man. The sheer, unadulterated gall of it almost made me laugh out loud. Instead, I just marked it down. Another piece of evidence, another nail in their self-constructed coffin. Bowen remained blissfully unaware of the storm brewing beneath my carefully constructed calm. He saw my lack of outright hostility as acceptance. He'd even started making comments like, "See, I told you it would be fine. Mum's already got ideas for the garden." "That's nice," I'd reply, my voice carefully neutral. The in-laws' visits became a grotesque parody of family harmony. They'd bring paint swatches, fabric samples for curtains I would never hang, and debate the merits of different flooring for rooms I intended to sell out from under them. One evening, Jorge, full of self-importance after a hearty meal that I'd cooked, pressed a booklet of paint swatches into my hand. "We're thinking a nice, calming blue for the master bedroom," he announced, as if he were bestowing a great gift. "Your current colours are a bit aggressive." My bedroom. Our bedroom, soon to be just me bedroom again, once Bowen was out. Aggressive? He had no idea. I smiled sweetly, the image of Anna Miller's confident face flashing in my mind. I'll consider it, Jorge. Thank you for the suggestion. He beamed, patting my shoulder. Good girl. Knew you'd see sense. Oh, I was seeing sense, all right. More sense than any of them could possibly imagine. The trap was set. All I had to do was wait for them to walk into it. And they were practically skipping. The final weeks leading up to M-Day, as I'd started calling it in my head, moving day, mayhem day, my day, passed in a surreal haze. Jorge and Vivian officially sold their house, the one they actually owned, not the fictional rental Bowen had mentioned. The closing went through, and suddenly, they were all about packing boxes and decluttering. Or rather, Vivian was about decluttering. Jorge mostly supervised from his armchair, offering pronouncements on what was good enough to bring to Cameron's. Bowen, bless his increasingly clueless soul, threw himself into the process with gusto. He spent weekends at his parents' old place, hauling boxes, dismantling furniture, a dutiful son to the bitter end. He'd come home exhausted but triumphant. Got Dad's entire workshop packed up today, he'd announce, beaming. He's so excited to set it up in our garage. My garage, I'd think, picturing the for sale sign that Anna's recommended realtor was preparing. That's ambitious, I'd reply, offering him a bottle of water. And Mum's sorted all her china. She's worried about it on the drive over, but I told her we'll pack it super carefully in my car. I just nodded, a silent movie playing in my mind. Vivian's face when she realised her precious china wouldn't be gracing my dining table. Anna called me midweek, her voice crisp and efficient. Just confirming, Cameron. All legal documents are filed and in order. The divorce petition, the motion for the sale of the house. The realtor has also confirmed the listing is live, discreetly for now, with photos taken when Bowen was at work last Tuesday. We've already had a couple of inquiries for showings, which we'll schedule post-revelation, of course. Post-revelation, I echoed, a shiver running down my spine despite the warm day. It sounds so dramatic. Well, Anna said, a hint of amusement in her tone. Given their plans, a little drama seems appropriate, don't you think? I did. I absolutely did. The Friday before M-Day, Jorge and Vivian insisted on a farewell to their old house dinner. They invited me and Bowen over. Their place was a chaotic landscape of half-packed boxes, bubble wrap, and dusty furniture outlines on the carpets. It felt like walking through the remnants of a life they were so eager to shed to take over mine. Dinner was take-out pizza, eaten on mismatched chairs, surrounded by their worldly possessions. The conversation, predictably, revolved around their brilliant future in my house. I was thinking, Vivian said, dabbing her mouth with a paper napkin. We could put that lovely antique mirror from the hallway in your entryway, Cameron. It would really open it up. And the big bookshelf from the study can go in the living room, Jorge added. Give it a more intellectual feel. Bowen nodded enthusiastically at every suggestion. It's going to be amazing, guys, like a whole new house. I picked at my pizza, a strange cocktail of anxiety and grim satisfaction churning in my stomach. I felt like an actor in the final scene of a play, knowing my lines, waiting for my cue. I just had to get through this one last charade. It certainly will be different, I said, managing a small smile. Later that evening, back in our soon-to-be quiet house, Bowen wrapped his arms around me from behind as I stood at the kitchen sink. See? He murmured, his chin resting on my shoulder. It's all working out perfectly. We're going to be one big, happy family. His words, meant to be reassuring, sent a chill through me. He was so utterly convinced of his narrative, so completely blind to the reality I was about to unleash. I turned in his arms, forcing a smile that felt brittle. Tomorrow will definitely be a memorable day, Bowen. He grinned, kissing my forehead. The start of a great new chapter for all of us. Oh, it would be the start of a new chapter, all right. Just not the one he was expecting. I barely slept that night, my mind replaying the scene to come, the words I would say, the looks on their faces. It was a potent mix of fear and exhilaration. The end was near. M-Day dawned bright and clear, a painfully beautiful Saturday. I was up before the sun, a knot of nervous energy coiling in my stomach. I dressed carefully, choosing an outfit that made me feel confident, in control. By the time Bowen stirred, I'd already had 2 cups of coffee and mentally rehearsed my lines a dozen times. "Morning, sleepyhead," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "Big day today." He stretched, yawning. "Tell me about it. Mum and Dad are aiming to be here by 9 with the first load. Said they're bringing the essentials first so they can get settled in right away." He grinned, oblivious. "You excited?" "Beyond words," I replied, and it wasn't entirely a lie. At precisely 8:57 a.m., their overstuffed minivan, trailing a small U-Haul trailer, rumbled up the driveway. Jorge was at the wheel, Vivian beside him, both beaming. Bowen practically skipped out the front door to greet them. I remained on the porch, a single, crisp white envelope held loosely in my hand. "There she is," Jorge boomed, climbing out of the van. "Ready for the reinforcements, Cameron?" Vivian rushed over to Bowen, giving him a hug. "Oh, darling, it's so good to be here. Finally." She then turned to me, her smile a little too wide. "You've no idea how much we've been looking forward to this, Cameron." "I think I have some idea," I said, my voice calm. Bowen, ever the eager beaver, was already at the back of the U-Haul, unlatching the door. "All right, let's get this show on the road. What's first, Dad? The recliner?" As he reached for the first heavy-looking box, I stepped forward. "Bowen," I said, my tone stopping him in his tracks. He looked up, surprised by the command in my voice. "Before you unload anything, I think you should read this first." I held out the envelope. He frowned, a flicker of confusion in his eyes. "What is it, Cam? Some kind of welcome card from Mum and Dad?" He chuckled, reaching for it. "Not exactly," I said. His fingers fumbled with the flap. Vivian and Jorge had paused, watching us with mild curiosity. The neighborhood was quiet. A bird chirped somewhere nearby. It felt like the calm before a hurricane. Bowen pulled out the folded papers. His eyes scanned the first page. I watched his face, a slow-motion capture of dawning comprehension. The colour drained from his cheeks, replaced by a sickly pallor. His smile vanished, replaced by an expression of utter disbelief. His hand, still holding the papers, began to tremble. "Cam, what is this?" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "It's a petition for divorce, Bowen," I stated clearly, my voice carrying in the still morning air. Vivian gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Jorge's jaw dropped. "Divorce?" Bowen choked out, his eyes wide with shock, darting between me and the papers in his hand. You're divorcing me?" "Yes, I am," I confirmed. "And before your parents start unloading their belongings into my house, there's something else you all need to know." I took a steadying breath. This was it. This house was listed for sale last week as part of our divorce settlement. It's considered a marital asset, albeit one I have significantly more claim to, which my lawyer is handling. You all have 30 days to vacate the premises. That includes you, Bowen. Your personal belongings will need to be removed, within that time frame as well. The silence that followed was absolute, thick and heavy. Bowen stared at me, speechless, the divorce papers fluttering in his shaking hand. Vivian's face crumpled, her carefully constructed composure shattering. Jorge's face turned a dangerous shade of purple. Then Vivian shrieked, a raw, animalistic sound of pure outrage and thwarted entitlement. No, you can't do this. We've sold our house. We have nowhere to go." Jorge finally found his voice, sputtering with rage. "This is outrageous! You conniving little... This is our home now. Bowen, tell her." Bowen just stood there, a broken statue, his eyes fixed on me, filled with a mixture of horror and a dawning, terrible understanding. Their arrogant smiles, the ones they'd worn like badges of honor for weeks, had completely collapsed. In their place was raw, unfiltered shock, disbelief, and the terrifying realization that their grand plan, their comfortable future, built on my unwilling generosity, had just been spectacularly, irrevocably demolished. Jorge took a step towards me, his fists clenched. "You can't do this. This is our home now," he bellowed, his voice cracking. I raised an eyebrow, my carefully cultivated calm holding firm. "Actually, Jorge," I said, my voice cool and level, "I can, and it's not. The immediate aftermath was pure, unadulterated chaos. Vivian launched into a volley of accusations, her voice shrill. "How could you be so cruel, Cameron? After everything we've done for you, after we welcomed you into our family." "Welcomed me?" I asked, a humorless laugh escaping me. "You mean after you planned to colonize my house and live off my income without so much as a discussion?" Jorge, bypassing accusations, went straight for bluster. "You'll hear from our lawyer. This is illegal. You can't just throw us out on the street." "Actually," I said, pulling out my phone, "my lawyer, Anna, is expecting your call. Or rather, she's expecting you to try and call her bluff. She's very good at her job." I held up the phone. "Would you like her number now, or would you prefer to find it on the divorce papers Bowen is holding?" Jorge's face purpled further, but he didn't reach for the phone. He knew, I think, that he had no leg to stand on. Bowen finally seemed to snap out of his stupor. He looked from his parents' furious faces to my resolute one, the reality of the situation crashing down on him. "Cam, please," he begged, his voice cracking. "Don't do this. We can talk about it. We can figure something out." "Figure what out, Bowen?" I asked, my voice devoid of the warmth it once held for him. "Figure out how you can continue to lie to me and funnel our savings to your parents. Figure out how I can be happy with 3 uninvited, entitled house guests for the rest of my life. No, Bowen. The time for talking is over. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine." Vivian switched tactics, her face crumpling into tears. "But where will we go? We have nothing. You're destroying our lives," she wailed, clutching at Bowen's arm. It was a masterful performance, but I wasn't buying it. "You sold your house, Vivian. You have the proceeds from that sale. You're not destitute. You're just inconvenienced. And frankly, that's a consequence of your own making." Just then, as if on cue, a nondescript sedan pulled up to the curb. A man in a suit got out, holding a clipboard. "Cameron?" he asked. I nodded. "I have a formal notice to quit for Jorge Rogers, Vivian Rogers, and Bowen Graham." He stepped forward, handing a copy to a stunned Jorge, then to Bowen. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises, as per the legal statutes of this state." Vivian stared at the paper, as if it were a snake. "Squatters' rights!" she suddenly shrieked, a wild look in her eyes. "We've established residency by bringing our things." She gestured vaguely at the U-Haul. The process server, clearly unfazed, simply said, "Ma'am, these premises are subject to an active divorce proceeding and a court-acknowledged intent to sell. Attempting to remain beyond the notice period will result in trespassing charges and forcible removal by the Sheriff's Department. I'd advise you to consult with an attorney." He then tipped his head to me. "My work here is done." He got back in his car and drove away. The fight seemed to drain out of them then, replaced by a dawning, horrified acceptance. Their grand plan, so meticulously plotted, so arrogantly assumed, was in tatters. The silence was broken only by Vivian's ragged sobs and Bowen's quiet, defeated sniffles. Jorge just stood there, looking old and deflated, the bluster gone. Watching them, I felt not a shred of pity, only a profound sense of relief. The weight I'd been carrying for months lifted. The next few weeks were an adjustment. Bowen moved out within the week, taking his things to his sister Tamara's spare room, a temporary and reportedly very tense arrangement. Jorge and Vivian, after a few more days of desperate, futile phone calls to lawyers who clearly told them what Anna had already predicted, found a small, overpriced rental apartment across town. The U-Haul, which had sat forlornly in my driveway for 2 days, was eventually emptied into a storage unit. The house sold remarkably quickly, thanks to Anna's realtor, and a surprisingly hot market. I found a smaller place, a chic little condo downtown that was all mine, filled with light and peace. The closing on the old house was swift, the division of assets heavily in my favour, just as Anna had predicted. The money Bowen had siphoned off was largely accounted for from his share of any remaining marital assets, which weren't much after the house. Tamara, surprisingly, called me once, not to yell, but with a sort of grim amusement. "You know, Cameron," she'd said, "I always told Mom and Dad they pushed too hard. They're miserable in that tiny apartment. Serves them right, I guess. Bowen's a wreck, by the way, finally realizing what he threw away. I didn't feel triumph, not exactly. More like a quiet, settled satisfaction. I'd reclaimed my life, my finances, my peace of mind, sipping coffee in my new living room. Sunlight streaming through the large windows, I looked around at the space that was entirely my own. No uninvited guests, no passive-aggressive comments, no secret betrayals. Just me, and the quiet hum of a life I was building on my own terms. They thought they were moving into my house. Instead, they moved right into the consequences of their own actions. And honestly, the view from here was fantastic.